Hello, everybody, and welcome for the last time to Sparky's Corner. In last week's episode, which can be seen in the top left-hand corner of the video here, we talked about game music from the 2000s. That's hardly a long time ago, huh? Seems like it was only a decade or so. Anyways, you should probably watch all parts of videos 1 through 3 before tuning into this one. The links to part 1 of each of those videos 1 through 3 will be in the description below. Gonna give that a moment to sink in so that you know where those are. Okay, that's good. Okay. Without further ado, we move into today's decade, the 2010s. Yeah, I'm not gonna try to recreate any music from this decade. There's nothing good to be found here. For once, I'm gonna start with a game that doesn't have to do with Super Mario something or other. This is one of my personal favorite games. It's recent, about shooting and war and fun. So it's everything ever released in the past couple years, pretty much. But not really. Oh, it's a little level transition theme.
Does this look familiar?
No, it doesn't look familiar. Alright, anyways. That's right, it's Battlefield 3 for the Xbox 360, PS3, and of course the PC. And the Game Boy Advance, the Game Boy Color, the original Game Boy, the VTech Smile, the Leapfrog. No. No, that was Okay, now before all of you get mad and say, "Wait, Zach, wait, why are you reviewing the music from this game? It's hardly anything new or exciting, it's all hackneyed. After all, it's just a generic shooter. Ugh. Well, the answer to that is, I have to review a game right after this, because A, it's a top seller, and B, its score is written by Hans Zimmer himself. But I don't care for that game nor its franchise, so I'm reviewing this one, its competitor, to try to balance that out. Anyways, Battlefield 3, as you can see, has stunning graphics and audio compared to other games out at this time. I mean, really, the engine it runs on is impressive, to say the least. Technology, gaming-wise at this point, is unbelievable. The progress that's taken place over the short years that have passed has truly been awe-inspiring. Games can now run high-quality, realistic sound with photorealistic graphics and connect players from around the world into the same match. Incredible, really. Now, as far as Battlefield 3 is concerned, how's the music? Well, let's listen. Huh, no music. Well, it's interesting. On one hand, you've got the themes. There are a few here and there. Each level in the campaign doesn't have its own theme, but certain events in the campaign do. Each time you're transitioning, well, each time the player is transitioning from level to level, there's a theme. It's the same theme over and over again. Online multiplayer, certain bundles of maps called map packs have their own themes that are played as transitions, but in the gameplay itself, there are very, very few themes. However, all the themes are typically so synth-heavy and similar that the player forgets he or she is listening to a new theme. Here, action's kicking off. Let's listen. No music. And, so they're listening to these synth-heavy themes when they're around, and they forget they're listening to a new theme and not just a version of a previous one. Level loading screens, as I mentioned, have their own quiet themes to make the gamer excited and anxious to find out what happens next or what the level's going to contain. And the main theme is quite interesting to listen to, which you can look up on your own time. I'm not going to put that in here. It's really, though, it's just a bunch of super crunched out tones mashed together that start soft and build according to the action on screen. The opening cinematic, On the online multiplayer, when one team is very close to victory and the round is nearly over theme plays for both teams, which lets the players know, hey, better start putting in serious effort. There's also a corresponding victory and defeat theme for whichever side wins or loses. The instrumentation is simple, either heavy drums, very digitized synths, or both. Nothing truly revolutionary here. In fact, at some points the music is so digital it seems like a collection of tones and not music. Long since past are the days of short, simple motifs and conspicuous, catchy themes that had players humming and tapping their feet. Now, gamers get these super digital, almost sound effect-like tones. Interesting. What makes Battlefield have a really effective sound environment is the lack of the music for most of the level. Only when certain key events are happening does some music kick in, and even then, it's subtle. Here, let's take a look at this scene here.
Holy fucking shit!
Did you hear those? Those very subtle drums with the synth tones? It's very soft, it's very subtle, but it absolutely helps to increase the mood of tension and panic. You know, and there's coarse language, sure. I mean, it's the Marine Corps, first of all. Second of all, it's war. You know the Marines aren't going to say, "Oh, fudge and heck, gentlemen. Oh, shoot." But anyways, up until this point, the focus has been on the audio of war. Guns, explosions, screams, etc. You know, music is only the focus when an even greater level of tension is needed, like right now. The lack of music, save for key experiences in the game, keeps the player pretty hooked, and the sound environment is really quite effective as a result. I mean, you get the sense you're in a firefight, really. If music was constantly playing, it might enhance the combat to some degree, but at the same time, it would remind the player it's just a game and not an experience. You know, and that might not be a good thing or bad thing depending on what your view of video games should be. Regardless, is it effective game music? More or less. They could have done a bit more quantity, and a few more sections, and maybe a little bit less digital sounding music. But overall, I'd say that the lack of music and the tones they use definitely help to reinforce the feel of the game. One last thing I will note, though, is that the lack of music at certain very biting sections of the game is quite potent. Small, quiet themes really reflect the mood of losing an ally in battle, as we see here. It's powerful stuff.
All right, I know what you're thinking. Maybe if I'd have done something.
Quick, sir, I need you to go do the same thing over and over again, all the time, forever.
Oh, a menu theme. Well, that's always a nice touch. Let's see here. Oh, right. It's Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Woo. After this brief little pause, the gamers are introduced to Modern Warfare 2's main theme. But nobody remembers it really off the top of their heads. Again, the days of short, simplistic melodies that have players humming them are gone. However, this score stands out for a few reasons. First of all, like Battlefield 3, the absence of the music during some combat bits helps to reinforce the drama of war. Second of all, unlike Battlefield 3, there's more music that does play during firefights, which really helps out the feel of a desperate situation, with its use of minor chords, heavy drums, etc. And the player really gets a sense that their actions need to be precise and that war is a serious business. And lastly, this game's score was composed by Hans Zimmer. Think about that. Game scores have gone from being composed by not very known, though they deserve to be known, damn it, Koji Kondo, to world-famous writers for Hollywood blockbusters. And by writers, I mean writers of music. If that doesn't show a colossal shift in the priorities of culture, I'm not sure what does. Now, as far as motifs go, there are a few here and there. Selecting custom loadouts, gun attachments, etc. in the menus has its own little theme as the player scrolls from option to option. Excuse me. In the campaign mode, when the player is killed or has their sense of hearing thrown out of whack by an explosion, there's a high-pitched ringing noise with some other synth sounds tossed in. This motif became the bane of gamers' existences. Having to hear it over and over because of a difficult section of the game would definitely make the game frustrating, much like the days of Super Mario, how the death motif would start to get monotonous and make players crazy. Other than that, musically, there isn't a whole lot going on in Call of Duty. The themes are not simple nor memorable, yet they are effective at conveying the mood of desperation or sorrow, depending on the situation on screen. You know, and the themes will cut out. There isn't music going forever. They go for a little bit depending on which part of the mission it is, what objective's been completed, etc. Excuse me. The instrumentation is a bit more classically based, but again, does have a heavy use of rapid and or deeply pitched drums, percussion, to emphasize the overall mood of tense, fast-paced action. The themes that make the player feel that the level has some real life to it, and, on the other hand, the lack of music during certain sections certainly helps a sad moment pop or an intense firefight seem all the more realistic. Effective game music? On the whole, yes. Moving on to part 2. See you over there.